Hello and welcome, Exiles. I want to talk around optimizing for the reflection of Kalandra. To me, this is the most exciting part of this mechanic, and it's going to lead you to making some of the best items in the game, and it's going to make Standard jealous because I think we can get the multiplier not to ×2, but to ×3 and beyond. This mechanic is the tile set called Reflection of Kalandra. It's very rare. It's restricted to 80 plus zones. That means T13 or T14 maps plus, and on top of that, there's a lot of bloat of other tiles you can get that aren't necessarily good in comparison. Like, there's elemental ones, there's physical chaos, whatever. Point is, we want to optimize for the reflection mist, and how can we do that? Well, there's some key notes I wrote down that I'm going to share with you guys. First off, difficulty scales based on the distance from the entrance. So when we're playing this sort of thing, we want to save our corner/far locations when we're generating a tablet, and we want to save those, keeping those empty until we get the ability to swap the entrance to the corner, and then save those to the very end. And whenever we get something optimal, like a Kalandra mirror, you want to put that as the farthest difficulty, because that's going to maximize how good that item can be. I've tested a few different things. Between a difficulty 3 item, I had about a 1.6 multiplier, and a difficulty 12, I had a 2.75 multiplier. My point being is if you optimize your lake, you're going to be able to get maybe potentially a ×3 multiplier. There's an example of where this might be possible. The Reflection of Kalandra, as you can see, is very rare in trade. There's only eight so far in trade. I think a lot of people in the higher tier maps aren't necessarily doing the mechanic because they're just optimizing boss rushing and stuff, but it's also a rare occurrence. And on top of that, a lot of these times people are generating it with difficulty 3, which at that point, it's not really that special. A 1.6 multiplier on your mods and half of them going negative isn't really that good of an outcome, right? But this can get a little bit crazy. If you look here, you can get up to difficulty 15 and even higher. This can start to be optimized via the Kalandra mechanics. Now, how do we do that? It's simply the reflection, reroll, and skip/exterminate options that you see down on the bottom. We generate those options by doing the mechanic. It's pretty simple. If you want to be able to reroll your options, every time you complete any difficulty 3 encounter, you're going to add 1 to the amount of times you can reroll, right? And these start to stack and stack and stack. My point being is if we're going to optimize for the Mirror of Kalandra, we are going to wait until we hit a 5x5 tile set of the Lake of Kalandra. And not only that, but we're going to be saving up exterminate options. This will allow us to get rid of flame, lightning, cold, fire. We're going to start getting rid of the tile sets that we don't want. So that way, the chances of us hitting that Mirror of Kalandra or the Kalandra reflection mist become higher and higher and higher. And simply, once we've optimized a decent amount of these, I think we can almost guarantee this because there is a limitation to how many tiles the thing offers, right? There's 22 possible tile types. Once you've eliminated the 5 major elemental types, the number of possibilities go way, way down, and thus increasing your chances of getting the Kalandra. Now, if you optimize for just 5 eliminates, you're probably still not guaranteed. But if you start to eliminate every other option, you're going to get the scenario where if you get a longest possible setup because you've optimized for having that sort of outcome, you could have a reflecting Kalandra thing 15 tiles in a row, and that way you can double and change a lot of jewelry. So I'm thinking the play is going to be a scenario where you run the mechanic, you save up these tile sets, and eventually you optimize for a Giga 5x5 tile. This can be optimized via the upgrade mechanics in... I think I wrote them down somewhere, but I'm just going to go here just to show you. Basically, you have 93 possible rooms. If you start eliminating room options, the Kalandra room is going to start showing up very common. So that's why I think you should save up the exterminate tiles and then go for an optimized 5x5 tile set. And you look at these upgrade options, you don't want to eliminate these per se. This will allow you to create a perfect tile set where you basically snake the tiles in an optimal manner to create the farthest possible distance to travel for basically getting the highest difficulty on that reflecting mist. Now, this is pretty simple. You basically save the corner tiles and save them for last. If you're not optimizing for this Giga Lake, these options usually come up at least once throughout an entire run of a lake. I have pretty much always had the option to swap an entrance tile with an empty tile. This is why I say in these notes, you should save your corner/far tablet locations for last. This means that If you save those for last, eventually you'll get the swap entrance with an empty tile option, which will allow to put your entrance at a far option from the other corner tiles, and maybe throughout that course of the lake, you'll get the Kalandra option naturally while you're trying to farm up these other, farm up the currencies to reroll to optimize a perfect lake, right? And that scenario, you will just make straight up a divine or two, depending on what the market dictates. I think this could keep going up potentially, or go down if a lot of people start generating these, but for me, the power level is very much worth a divine or two divines to take a YOLO at making some of the craziest items the game has ever seen. Other optimizing tips I recommend is you usually want to make sure to get an idea of what tier / special rooms do when they're upgraded different tiers. Pay attention to them because it does matter. You might think, oh, I always skip breach. The breach reward wasn't good the last time I used it. Well, sometimes you can get a higher tier tile set and it'll have a different description. It'll say, in this breach room, it opens faster, it closes faster, there's more density. Or it might say, if it's a tier 3 version, for example, it'll say guaranteed boss will spawn and that boss will drop a breach stone. This is the case for a lot of these different basically league mechanic reward types. You want to pay attention just to get an idea. You'll start to get a feel for it every time. You'll be able to read really quickly and be like, okay, I know what that one says. I've seen that one before. And there will be rewards that you start to realize, okay, if I see that reward, I'm going to take a second look to make sure it doesn't have something really good on it. And then other than that, you're basically optimizing to have your fights so that way you can get these things stacked up while also optimizing your chance of seeing the Kalandra mechanic, because whenever you get that thing, you can sell it for money or you can try it at your own jewelry. I'm only going over this specifically because I'm excited about the mechanic and I'm specifically going to be optimizing for creating these reflecting mist Kalandra rooms. And ideally, it's also because I haven't changed my Righteous Fire character at all, because I've been specifically farming for this, because the upgrade or the change I'm going to make on the Righteous Fire character, the next change, is going to be based around the reflected Kalandra jewelry. So I figured I'd make this video because instead of doing a day 2 update, which would basically be, hey, my character has the same gear and I've just been farming some content, this will be an informative video for people who want to play the mechanic. This is how you optimize for specifically the Kalandra reflection thing. Keep in mind, there's some other neat things like Kalandra. Every time you run one of these, Kalandra will pretty much always spawn. So you're going to have a random chance at getting just some GG jewelry every single time. I think this is the best, basically, generic reward of the fights. Overall, the Lake of Kalandra rewards don't seem great in my opinion for the difficulty. It gets very, very difficult in terms of monster HP / damage reduction and how much damage, how hard they hit, the higher those difficulties go. I very rarely feel like I'm getting rewarded that much for the basic elemental, fizz, chaos, lightning, cold reward tile sets, because it's basically a random chance you either get a currency chest or you get basically an armor, a jewelry, or weapon chest, which are all pretty much worthless. No matter how far you go into the difficulty, you go do a difficulty 12 armor chest, it still gives you 5 rare items and you're like, wow, that was worthless, right? So there is, I think the reward scaling could use some tuning, because it feels like the main thing I want to do is I just want to bum rush Kalandra, bum rush the things to get my specific reroll skip Legion tiles, and then outside of that, I'm out of there, right? So I think the mechanic rewards feels a little bit lackluster, and it's basically one of those things where you're just grinding it just for the giga reward of, if you hit a Kalandra jewelry that rolls 6 positive and doubles on good mods, you've made an item that could potentially be miles better than anything we've ever seen in terms of rare jewelry, because apparently the random generated jewelry from Kalandra can roll 4 positive, 1 negative, or 5 positive, or even 6 positive on top of doubling / tripling the mods, which means we could potentially see 300 res rings with 200 life plus 100 wed, and it would be like, it would blow your mind. But the chance of that is so low. There's going to be one really lucky guy that gets it, and we'll see it on Reddit, and then there's going to be the scenario where the people who grind the mechanic will probably see some decent items, some items that will sell for a few divines here or there, but ultimately, I think where this mechanic's really going to shine is all about the specific Kalandra tile set. If you see reflection of Kalandra as a reward tile set, to never skip this. This is Giga Value. Also, there's some interesting tile sets that I just want to show you guys real quick, which are Reflection of Paradise. This is basically, if you proc this, put it on a high difficulty, it's going to Giga level you, because this has crazy XP on top of the XP scaling with difficulty. Some guy said he leveled 3 times from 80 to 83 in under a minute from getting this tile, so that's really fun. There's another tile called Reflection of Angling. If this thing's even real, you know, maybe fishing boat league, it is real, who knows, but there's stuff like that I'd pay attention to. All in all, I'm a fan of the mechanic, except for the difficulty. Man, does it hit hard, and it is punishing. Once you start scaling that up with our weak league start characters, it's rough. I'm sure once we get to the higher scale of, like, you know, min-maxing our characters, get our characters really rolling, it won't feel so punishing, and the reward will feel more worth it. But right now, when we're so early on, man, is it punishing. So that's my tips and tricks for the Lake of Kalandra mechanic. If you want to optimize specifically for getting those reflection, is basically always save your corner tiles, and whenever you can, do things like swap water tile for an empty tile when it basically allows you to extend the distance. And then yeah, hopefully you guys will get lucky and drop some Reflection of Kalandra tablets. If you can't get lucky, you can always force it with this. So this is probably what I'm going to start saving up for, because I don't know if I'm going to get lucky. This definitely seems like a very rare drop, and so I'm going to start farming up these specific things so I can brute force myself some Reflection of Kalandra tablets. Anyways, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, Exiles.